Hello and welcome to this brand new episode of the Silmarillion Film Podcast. I am your co-host, Dave Kale, back after a one episode hiatus or absence. I was gone last time, if you've been listening. But here I am. I'm back, and I'm coming from we successfully completed a move, and we're at the new place, kind of living
Excellent.
the semblance of a normal life. And I even I now have an office here. So,
wow.
Which
is, that is luxury right there.
Yeah. Now it's not an air conditioned office, which is unfortunate.
Well, can't have everything.
You can't have everything. So I'm here and I'm excited to talk about to do part 3 of the men storylines, or in the 21st century, I think we refer to them as humans.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm excited to not get nearly as far through it as Corey thinks we will. Speaking of Corey, I'm joined as always by the Tolkien professor Corey Olson and the Tolkien Maven Trish Lambert. How are you two on this fine, warm evening?
Very good. Very
Excellent.
Good.
Yes.
Good to hear your voice again.
Definitely. Glad things are working out well for you. I also, my office is not air conditioned either, but it's in the basement. So summertime, I'm good. Wintertime, it gets pretty chilly down here, but summertime, I'm pretty happy down here. So that's good.
Oh, good. I'm glad. How about you, Trish? What's your temperature situation?
You holding up down
are
there?
You kidding?
Yeah,
it's
you're
low
gonna be the
90s.
hottest of the
It's
three, right?
Yeah, it's like 92, 93 every day. So it's like, So I go out in the mornings before the sun's actually, come up over the horizon and do what I need to do outside, and then in the evenings, right around now, usually, actually, I can go outside and not completely, keel over. But yeah, I don't. And the thing is, people say, "Oh, it's so hot in Texas," and it's like, yeah, but it's only for 3 months out of the year. The other 9 months are fine. But the truth is, those 3 months are just hellish.
They're pretty brutal. Yeah.
And I'm only halfway through the first month, so yippee, skippy.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, no, this whole going outside thing, I barely do it anymore. These days, I often don't leave my house more than once or twice a week, honestly.
Me too.
And
I know.
So today actually, I had to go out and run an errand, and it was always 90 degrees and sunny here, and I'm like, man, this being outside thing is for the birds. Like I got to get back indoors, where it's get back into my basement where it's cool.
Where it's cool, yeah. No kidding. Jeez.
Yeah, I have not forgotten the taste of strawberries, Karita, but I have forgotten the yellow face. Pretty much. I was like out trying to like work on my phone, and I was like doing Signum work and talking to a bunch of people, and I'm like, why can't I see the screen on my phone? I'm like, oh yeah, I've almost forgotten the yellow face. I can't standing here under the noonday sun, and it's. Anyway, that's such is the world of 2020. But let us move forward, because we've got a bunch of things to do, and I'm certain we're going to get through everything. Unlike Dave, I am supremely confident that we're going to get through both Hodor and Amlach tonight. At least I think we've got a fighting chance to do that, because they're kind of interconnected. So, we'll see how we do. But first, a couple important announcements, because there's a lot going on at Signum right now. One thing is, of course, we've rescheduled Mythmoot for the beginning of August. That is still scheduled to happen, like in 3D, on August 6th through 9th. Down in Leesburg, Virginia. So you can find information on this at signumuniversity.org/Mythmoot. To sign up for Mythmoot, just had another registration today. It's always fun to see Mythmoot registrations coming in. It's been delayed, of course, and so I can almost, and it's been so long since we've been able to do any kind of gathering that I've almost forgotten what it was like, but I'm really excited, really hoping for the opportunity to get to see people again. But Karita was just saying, has anyone done a supercut of Corey saying I'm supremely confident yet? It's only a matter of time if no. I hear that. I hear that. But anyway, our other two announcements are two big things that are happening right now at Signum. One, of course, is the Signum Path program. You can go to path.signumuniversity.org, which is this page here, to get information on our courses. This is our big new initiative here at Signum, as we are wanting to fill a gap, to provide opportunities for people to improve themselves, to improve what are often called soft skills, what we call foundational skills. Which have just an enormous impact on all of the things that all the things that you do at work, no matter what your career is. They're the most universally applicable job skills that you can get. Things like writing and oral communications and emotional intelligence and things like that. Remarkably useful. So you can go to our badges page and look at all of our badges. If you click the register button, you will see the courses that we're offering here in July and August. Our courses are little mini courses that run every month. And we're running a special this summer because this is our first summer, and we really want to encourage people. You know, we want people to experience this new program, and so we're offering for the end of the summer. We're offering a 2-for-1 program. So if you sign up for a course in July, we'll also let you get a class in August completely for free. So sign up for any of our July classes and you can get an August course for free. So here's how it works. So this is just, again, you go to the Path page, path.signumuniversity.org, click on the register button to bring you here, sign up for one of our July classes, and then send an email to our Path email address, path@signumu.org, and just let us know which August class you like, and we'll manually sign you up for that behind the scenes. That's the special that we're running for the rest of the summer. So I hope that you'll avail yourselves of that. Let people know, spread the word about that. Also, so for those, I know that, many people who are listening to Silm Film or watching it or joining us live here are folks who have been supporting Signum for a long time. So just, another way that you can really help as we're trying to, to spread the word about our new program here, is if you, for companies that you work for or, people that we really want to connect with HR folks, with people who are human resources directors or counselors or people who are training managers. Training directors. Because these are the people who usually have at the same time a very keen understanding of the value of these kinds of skills, but often have very limited resources for being able to improve these kinds of foundational skills within their companies. And so we would love to be able to talk with them and set up basically referral programs where they can send people from their companies to us. They can take the courses individually and get reimbursed by the company. So it's a very, very small investment of money and only investment in completed credentials, essentially. So it's a really low cost, high value for the company. And it enables us basically to help to supplement their training offerings at no trouble and little cost to them. So anyway, really interested to talk with folks about that. So definitely, if you have someone, if you know some of the human resources folks at your work, or you're friends with someone who is in a position like this, by all means, send us an email. You can send an email to me personally, or send an email better because I'll get this too, to path@signumu.org, and I'd love to have an introduction and make some more of those connections. That would be really good.
Karita asked, which of the Silmarillion characters would benefit most from a Signum Path course? I vote for Fëanor, emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. His writing skills are really top notch. I mean, you've got to give him credit for that, right?
Also a master of rhetoric.
Exactly, right.
Well, she says he's a little too good at powerful presentations. So.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You want to talk about powerful presentations? Fëanor could definitely do a little master class in that. There's no question. But yeah, he definitely has some weaknesses. I would say, and Yeah, I think conflict resolution and emotional intelligence is person to person. Really, that's the badge that Fëanor needs, obviously.
That's the badge for the
Yeah,
it's the
that's really
Fëanorian
the badge.
badge.
That's the Fëanorian badge. Definitely. So anyhow, so I definitely wanted to let you guys know about the 2-for-1 thing. Again, our July courses start for first full week of July. So please do take advantage of this soon and share it. Tell people about it. Especially, we're doing a lot of promotions on LinkedIn, to sort of be reaching out to folks in the corporate world there. So definitely those of you who are on LinkedIn, connect with me personally on LinkedIn, and definitely like our Signum Path page and share our stuff and everything. It's
Corey's posting
cool.
a series of articles there that I think you'd find really interesting. If you haven't started there, then if you go to his profile, you'll see all of them, and start with the earliest one and move on up, because he's kind of building a case. It's really a good, really good. Really good.
Working through sort of the rationale for what we're doing and why we're doing it and everything, essentially.
Right.
But anyway, okay, so that's Signum Path stuff. The last announcement on other big things that Signum is also doing. The humanities is really where we're focusing. And so I mean, in a nutshell, one of the major things that's happening at Signum University this year is 2020, the year that Signum University looks around, realizes that humanities are in a mess everywhere, and decides we need to do something about this. So we're kind of attacking both ends there. We're both looking at the sort of the outcome of the fact that humanities have been in a mess for a while. That is, that people are really lacking a lot of these skills, and so we're trying to go and help folks who really could supplement that. But we're also kind of wanting to go back to the other end as well, and improve the teaching of humanities at the undergraduate level moving forward. We're planning to launch an undergraduate program in the humanities starting. It's a future project. We wouldn't be able to start that until the fall 2022 semester. So we're 2 years out from beginning the actual program, but we're having our first public conversations about this. So next month, at the end of July 25th, 2020, we're going to be holding an online conference, which we're calling the Summit on Teaching the Humanities. And the goal here is we're inviting any faculty member who teaches in the humanities, and we'd like to bring as many as we can, as many faculty members, humanities faculty members as we can together to discuss. We have some proposals, some ideas for a new approach to teaching the humanities, which is also really a new approach to doing undergraduate degrees, honestly. We're really looking for finding ways to design a new digitally native approach to higher education for the 21st century, because to be honest, I think that there's a lot of ways in which higher education is really floundering in the 21st century right now, a floundering which has been accelerated by the COVID crisis. And we think that there is a really bright new future ahead of higher education, and we're really interested to pioneer that and to pave the way there, and especially to find better ways to do the humanities in higher education. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And again, both of these things, both Signum Path and our undergraduate program, are both sort of the two different prongs of these initiatives in the humanities that Signum is moving into here in 2020 and moving forward. So that's the big stuff going on at Signum these days. So the two take homes that I wanted to, or is it takes home? Where do you pluralize it? I'm not sure. But anyway, the two things which I would like you to take home are, first, the 2-for deal for Signum Path. Sign up for a July course, get an August course for free, and then the Humanities Summit. Let any if any of you do teach the humanities, please do. The conference is free. We're not charging anything for the conference, but it is by invitation. So send a statement of interest to us, and then we will issue invitations to take part in this summit to discuss the future of the humanities. So send an email to humanities@signumu.org to submit a statement of interest for that. So please do pass this along to any other humanities folks that you know that might be interested in this. Okay.
Boy, there's a lot going on.
Lots going on at Signum these days, plus also other stuff too, which I can't even talk about. So all kinds of things happening at Signum these days. But let us talk about what's happening in and around Estelad. So we have been working our way through the main storylines of the human populations here in season 5. And we've kind of, and perhaps unwisely, maybe there was an element of cowardice involved, but we've started with the easiest ones and we've been pushing back the hard ones as we go. We started with Haleth, right, which is the most sort of contained and sort of exciting storyline, right? And then last time we talked about Beor and the people of Beor, which is still fairly self-contained, but you know, we had some controversy and discussions about what we wanted to do with them and how we wanted to. And one of my primary arguments there was I would really like to make sure that we have storylines which are differentiating the different groups. So we've got, you know, the people of Haleth, and they have their story, and the people of Beor, and they have their story, not just Beor by himself living with Finrod. I wanted to keep the people together so that the people of Finrod, they basically become the people of Finrod, right? The people of Beor who live with Finrod in Nargothrond, as we were discussing last time, would become different, right? They would have a different experience. And so they would, moving forward into the remainder of the story in the second half of the season and beyond, there would be a very different heritage, a different story behind the people of Beor. Not just a general kind of amorphous population kicking around in Estelad. So we talked about the people of Beor. So we've been delaying the subject of the amorphous people of Marach, who kind of vaguely, mill around in Estelad for an indeterminate amount of time. And we're going to start off talking about Hador, because one thing that we decided earlier on in our discussions is that we would... So the very first question in trying to make a cohesive story about this third group of people is that we wanted a figure for them to be focused on. We've got Beor and we've got Haleth. Haleth is a really strong character, right? Who is obviously at the core of the story of her people. Beor is not a strong character in the same way, but he is at least this sort of founder figure, right? And we're going to have people who come after him, of course, and who will kind of complicate the heritage of the people of Beor to some extent, as that, and we talked about the sort of the growth and development of the story of the people of Beor last time. So we need somebody. We need somebody to kind of hang the story of the third people on, and my strong vote from the beginning was Hador, because especially since eventually the people of Hador are going to be, a couple hundred years from now, there are going to be 3 houses of the Edain, right? We're always going to talk about 3 houses of the Edain: the people of Haleth, the people of Beor, and the people of Hador. That's what it's going to be in hundreds of years, right? When we talk about the 3 households of the Edain, that's what we're talking about. So my argument was that I would like to have this third group of people be the people of Hador basically from the beginning, so that we don't spend half of a season establishing them as like the people of Marach, and then Hador comes along and then later they kind of and there's confusion, like, wait, are the people of Hador the same as the people of Marach? Wait, I want that story to be like clear and coherent from the beginning. So I was arguing for moving Hador up the genealogical line, right? I know he's a later character. He doesn't come along for several generations after Marach and the arrival there. We have Beor comes over with his people. We have Haleth there, at least very soon after they arrive. Hador is several generations down the pike in the text. But I was arguing, since he's going to be the one, it's going to be called the House of Hador. Everybody knows it is the House of Hador, right? Even like casual Silmarillion readers. Is there such a thing as a casual Silmarillion reader? I'm not quite sure that there is. But anyway, even relatively casual Silmarillion readers will remember it as the House of Hador. So I would like to think about incorporating Hador earlier on, and even having him be involved perhaps from the very beginning there. So But of course, the other major character, which I still kind of hope to talk about, and I still kind of hope to talk about both of them, is Amlach. Because Amlach is one of those, I had suggested already several sessions ago that I would be totally in favor of just cutting Marach entirely, right? So that they're never called the people of Marach at all, and have Hador be their leader from the time that they cross the mountains. Like, I would be perfectly willing to consider that as a story possibility. I'm not saying that I think it's the only possibility, but I still want to have him early. If not that early, I want to have him pretty close to that early, so that, again, whenever these people do get an identity, their identity will be around Hador. Now, Amlach, I would be tempted to say that sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. I would be tempted to say that we cut everybody else, right? Like, I don't want to refer to a whole lot of characters that we don't need unless they have a specific role in our narrative, unless there's a reason that we are asking our viewers to remember this person, right? Then I would rather not even mention them. I would rather have them not even come up. So part of me wants to say, let's just be merciless, right? And let's have Hador there be three, right? There's Haleth, and there's Haleth, and there's Beor, and there's Hador, right? And so cut all of them, cut Marek, cut Amlach, cut all of them. But we can't cut Amlach, because the story of the fake Amlach at the council is way too good a story, right? We obviously totally have to do that story. So for the sake of the story of the fake Amlach, we need Amlach as well. So to me, the biggest picture question is, what are the two roles that Hador and Amlach are going to have within the context of these peoples who are left in Estelad? But of course, remember, I forgot to mention, of course, the very biggest question, what seems to me the very biggest imperative of our storytelling, and that is that there needs to be a kind of identity. There needs to be a recognizable story of the people of Hador, which is not just a repeat of the stories of the people of Haleth and Beor. If their story is going to be the same as theirs, why tell it, right? Why tell the same story twice? We could do a much better job of focusing on just the one story, right? And so we had talked about having the story of this third people be essentially an in the middle story. We've got Haleth at the I want to be independent extreme, and we've got Beor as the I want to be subservient to the Eldar. I want to serve the Eldar and acknowledge that we are, just here to help them, right? That's the Beor story. So we want the story of the people of Hador et al. To be different and different in the middle. And what we were saying is, rather than just having them be kind of lukewarm and boring and on neither extreme, to instead have theirs be a story of change, right? To have them moving in a particular direction. And the place that we had agreed before that we wanted them to end up, right? We want them to end up living in Dor-Lomin with Hador as their king, right? But with the relationship between Hador and his people being qualitatively different from the relationship between Beor and Finrod, Beor's people in Finrod, right? Whereas Beor is a vassal and servant to Finrod, we wanted the people of Hador to be allies, right? They are meeting the elves, they are working with the elves, they ally themselves with the elves, but we wanted to have them meeting the elves more on equal terms than the people of Beor were. And so that would give them a distinction, would enable us to tell a different story. Okay, so exactly, Stephen Cover, that's exactly it. So we are telling the story. This is the Goldilocks group, right? We've got this group of men is too subservient, this group of men is too independent, and this group is just right. That's kind of it, right? And it's not to say that, Haleth and Beor are totally wrong, but we do want it to be a different story in that way. So, okay. With all of that kind of preambulatory material, let's go through some of the factors here. And I want to talk about actually kind of both of them at once in order to figure out how the storylines are going to go, because we need to figure out what is the work that needs to be done, right? What are the sort of narrative tasks, as it were, that need to be accomplished, and how can we best arrange that in order to get the most value out of those stories, to make those stories as impactful as we possibly can. So, okay. I'm going to actually just kind of read through the notes from these slides so you can see these notes are questions and suggestions and outlines derived from discussions that you guys have had on the discussion boards. I want to say at the beginning, I am really interested. I loved a lot of the suggestions that you guys had on the discussion boards during this past fortnight. Some really, really good stuff on Hador and Amlach. And I will warn you in advance, just like last time, I was warning you in advance that I thought that a lot of you weren't going to like the fact that I wanted to suggest taking Beor's whole people with him into Nargothrond. But you guys were real flexible and kind of warmed up to the idea, which I was glad of. This time I'm going to tell you in advance, I'm not planning radically to depart from most of your suggestions. There's still some of your points upon which I'm going to differ, I think, but I totally agree with the general spirit of really the vast majority of your suggestions. So there was a lot of good thing. Yeah, Nick, it's true. It's probably more accurate to say that I've beaten them into submission concerning Nargothrond. I get it. I know, but it's all good. it's all good. But again, today I come prepared to agree with you, is what I'm saying. And I really love a lot of your suggestions, and I'm planning to read some of your some quotes from the discussion boards there. Okay, so stuff about Hador here. The story. This is the story that's going to finally answer, in a sense, the question of the humans' relationship with the elves. They are going to be allies who fight alongside the elves, neither independent nor vassals. How does Hador distinguish himself? In particular, is he the unifier of his people, or the visionary who moves them across Beleriand, or someone who connects them with Fingon, or what exactly is his particular role in the story? So suggestions involve adventures of him distinguishing himself as a young man, questions about the council. Now, we should talk about for a second this council, because the council is one of the single biggest plot events, really. There are two major plot events. I get three if you include the Dagor Bragollach. But as far as establishing what the stories are going to be, establishing the framework for these stories in season 5, there are really two things that we need to resolve, right? One is the story of the migration. We need to get everybody where they need to be, right? So how do we get the people of Hador, A, under Hador's leadership, and then B, to Dor-lómin, right? So that's one major sort of story point in season 5 with this group of folks. The second major story element is really the only narrative element we get about them at all in the published Silmarillion, and that is the story of the big council, that they hold a big council to decide, because there are some of them who are grumbling and who are saying, okay, we crossed the mountains, we thought it was nicer over here, but there's like a war going on and this is awful, let's leave, right? So some of them want to go back and go home, some of them want to help the elves, and so they have that big council to decide what they should do, right? And that's the moment when the fake Amlach shows up. Yeah. Sorry, Dave, did you want to add something there?
No, I'm good. Keep going.
Okay. All right. Cool. So the council, major plot moment, the migration to Dor-lómin, other major plot moment, right? Okay. So what's Hador's role therefore going to be at the council? One possibility, of course, that he's a pro-elf voice in opposition. So Bereg is the character who Beric and Amlach are the two anti elf voices. Basically, they're the ones who are the voices for human independence. We should just take off and leave Beleriand. And of course, within the Silmarillion narrative, Amlach is not actually there he rises at the council and he gives this really persuasive speech about why they should not believe the elves and how the elves are all deceiving them. And then he shows up later and says, I was never there. I wasn't even at the council. And so they all discover that like some evil agent has come and imitated Amlach, and Amlach then changes his mind and says, okay, I'm definitely going to dedicate the rest of my life to fighting the enemy in the north who duplicated me. And so he changes his mind and becomes I'm going to stay in Beleriand. But Bereg, in the text, takes a big chunk of the people from Estelad, that initial encampment, and takes them back over the mountains, and they're gone. They leave the story. So one role for Hodor would be that he becomes a pro-elf voice at the council. So we've got Bereg and Amlach, especially Bereg and fake Amlach, right? Evil fake Amlach, who is Stephen. Yeah, I think it seems to me almost a given that that's Sauron, right? I mean, this totally, especially based on the character of Sauron that we've been developing, this totally seems like a Sauron op to me, right? So, I think that's definitely a strong suggestion there. But anyway, so having Hodor have a role at that council was one sensible thing that we could do. The Dragon Helm. This, of course, is another big deal. Like, how does he establish his relationship with Fingon and Fingolfin up in the northwest, right? Up in Dor-Lómin. How does he get the Dragon Helm? Because he's going to get the Dragon Helm, right? He's going to be given the Dragon Helm. How does that come about? How does he make that connection? Why does he decide to move his people up there? What other meaningful relationships does he have? What is his relationship with Amlach? Fingon, does he know anybody from the House of Haleth? Does he know Adonel, the wise woman who is Andreth's mentor from the people of Beor? How does that work? And then, of course, we'll have his descendant responding to Fingolfin's call to arms and dying in the Dagor Bragollach. So that's going to be down his, just a little bit down his line. Of course, according to the text, he's later on in this. So we'll sort out the genealogies. Hopefully the plan is in the next session, we'll return after having discussed all of these storylines and decided how we want to shape the stories. We'll come back to the genealogical question and do our revised genealogy to fit the time frame that we're planning for season 5. Okay, so those are the Hodor questions. Meanwhile, related are the Amlach questions. So Amlach begins as a voice of dissatisfaction with the elves. Why? Why doesn't he like the elves? Why doesn't he want to stay in Beleriand? What is his relationship with other men? What does the House of Hodor think about Morgoth before the council? His story, Amlach's story, with the whole fake Amlach situation and everything, is about a loss of innocence and his decision to choose a side. Okay, so he is, in the text, the cousin of Adonel, the wise woman, who will reappear in Andreth's story. And we talked about Adonel a little bit last time. Adonel, is pro-elf and supports Beor's ideas about the proper relationship between elves and men. And Amlach, in contrast, is itching for more independence and has some doubts about the elves. And I would say the difference between Amlach's separatism, I would just say right now, Amlach's separatism and Haleth's separatism are different. And the primary difference I would say between them is that Haleth's separatism is a little more pugnacious, right? That is, the difference is they both want to be independent from elves, but Amlach wants to go away from the elves, right? He wants to leave Beleriand entirely, go back across the mountains into Eriador, where there are at least fewer elves and none of this war action going on, so that they can be undisturbed by the elves. Haleth, she's just like, no, I like it here. I'm going to stay here, but we're going to mind our own business and you're going to stay out of ours, right? So she insists on staying in Beleriand and instead just wants to make her own little spot in Beleriand, where nobody bothers her and she doesn't bother anybody else. It's a lot more stubborn of a move as a separatist thing, right? I'm going to be a separatist, but I'm going to do it here, doggone it, right? Is Haleth's perspective, whereas Amlach and Bereg, in the text, if we want to keep Bereg, and I think we probably do, but anyway, there's a distinct different attitude in saying we want to go back across the mountains and just get out of this whole situation, right? Okay. Anyway, so we have Bereg, who in the text is in the house of Beor. Personally, I would rather change that, because again, in the text, the whole house, most of the house of Beor is still all there, vaguely in Estelad, and I made my strong argument last time for shifting the house of Beor entirely, to be able to build a genuinely different elf-human scenario with them. And so therefore I would not want Bereg to be one of the house of Beor. I would want the other voice alongside Amlach to be from that same house, honestly. And I don't have... I'm a little bit tempted to, again, to cut. I mean, I've got my clipping scissors out in this season. Like, there's so many characters and I only want to use the ones that we need. But there's a good argument to say we need both Bereg and Amlach's character, right? To have the two anti-elf, essentially, voices at the council. But because they do different things, they have different destinations. One does actually leave, right? And I do think we do want to keep the fact that a bunch of the people actually do decamp. To decamp from Estelad is just what you would do, right? Estelad means encampment. So anyway, so they would decamp and go back across the mountains, but then Amlach is going to stay. So having there be essentially the three people, three leaders of the people, of this third group, right? Three prominent voices. And to me, what makes most sense to me is to have them be Hador, the pro-elf voice, Amlach, and Bereg, unless because we're changing him out of the House of Beor, we want to change his name or use a different name for him. I'm not wedded to Bereg. Bereg sounds a very House of Beorian kind of name, right? So if I would want to take him out of the House of Beor and make him of this house. In which case we could call him something else. Heck, we could even call him Marach if anyone wanted to, or Malach, or something like that. But anyway, but to have those three voices, the two anti-elf voices and the one pro-elf voice, so that essentially we still have the one leader to lead off a portion of the humans off into oblivion, to show that is one outcome, that some of the men just choose not to have anything to do with the Eldar. And then some are going to be with Hador, the allies of the elves. And then there's Amlach. And this is the final kind of question about Amlach. Well, semi-final. What happens to him? We know that he goes to join Maedhros. Does he lead a bunch of people up to Maedhros? Is that what, or does he go off kind of by himself? Does he not end up leading a group of people away after the council? Is it mostly just him, or maybe just him and a handful of other people? How do we handle that? And then of course there's the question of what exactly happens to him. Where was he why wasn't he there during the council? Are we going to, there's been suggestions on the discussion board that he gets captured perhaps, by Sauron, so Sauron waylays him first and kidnaps him, and then is there a verb form? Do you doppelgang somebody, or I'm not sure.
That's a good question.
I would think there should be a verb for that, shouldn't there?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there is the word impersonates, but that's a boring word. I want a word,
Yeah,
a
I like
verb form of
doppelgang better.
doppelganger.
Yeah.
But I don't know, my German isn't good enough to know what the verb form should be. But anyway, yeah. Okay. I agree, Marie. The argument in favor of keeping Bereg's name Bereg is that it's very different from Amlach and Hador, right? So that when we're talking about those, the one thing I kind of insist on, we could use the name Marach. We could also use the name Malach, but I am not using them both. That is not happening. That is a nightmare. Anyway, okay.
You don't think there's any chance of getting Bereg and Beleg mixed up later on? I mean, it's a completely different story.
We do have a Beleg, right? I mean,
Right.
we have a Beleg and we're going to have a Baron, of course. So to have a Bereg, which is like, the marriage of those, two, the marriage of those two names. It's another reason not to love the name Bereg. Now, I agree, Nick, they're not going to be interacting. First of all, Bereg is going to be a minor character, right? I mean, he's going to come in to be an antagonist voice. We don't even really have to introduce him. We could just introduce him at the council, right? I mean, he can just be that dude who speaks up at the council, who is the spokesperson for the naysayers, who supports Amlach, and who will show him leading the people away, right? This guy can be a one-episode wonder. He doesn't have to be a major character at all.
He could be the human version of Figwit.
Yeah, a little bit more than that because he'll get lines, right? But but apart from that, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so, okay. So these are the questions that we have before us here. Let's start with, let's start with the overall shape. Before we think about the individual careers of any of the three people, hang on a second. Another question that we have to solve is, do we want the council, right? The council that they have where fake Amlach shows up and everything. And afterwards, Bereg or whoever, whatever his face is called, whatever we decide to call his face. I mean, when Bereg leads the people away afterwards. So at the council meeting, do we want to have representatives from the other peoples there? Do we want the people, the Haladin to send some emissaries, the people of Beor to send some emissaries, maybe the elves to have a voice? Do we want this to be like a general kind of, global, at least pan-human, if not pan-Beleriand summit meeting? Or do we want this just to be a council for that group of people? David, Trish, do you have any strong opinions on this subject?
I like the idea of I don't think the elves should be participating, but I think they sent somebody to observe.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
And
I do like the idea of it being a big council.
And it should be somebody who can't resist opening his mouth.
Right. Well, so I agree it will be obvious to any of the rest of the peoples, both elves and human alike, that the outcome of this council is a big deal, right? Because numerically, this group of people is the largest and most significant, right? So if all of these people decide to take off and go back across the mountains, people of Beor are swell and all, and the people of Halath are feisty, but they're also few. It's not a very big amplification of the forces of the elves. If the elves are hoping, as we know they are, to gain allies in their fight against Morgoth, they won't have gained very much if they lose all of these people. So I agree that the elves who are paying attention are certainly going to have you know, they're definitely going to have a horse in that race, essentially, even though it's not about them and they wouldn't necessarily be invited. I agree. They probably shouldn't have a full ambassador, because this is supposed to be a council of the men, right? But, so yeah. Aha. Right. Of course, Rhiannon suggests Angrod naturally. And of course, Caranthir, Stephen suggests. Yeah, there you go. There's somebody who can't resist opening his mouth, Dave. Let's have Caranthir show up. He's neighbor, right? I mean, he would take an interest because this is happening on his estate, right?
That's true. Maybe he's just there to make sure that they don't act up.
Yeah. Marie suggests Amras. Yeah. Let's have the elf who is most detached from everybody else, like the sort of isolationist, embittered, remaining twin, show up and be in. It is Amros's backyard. I know it. I mean, it would be relevant, but he would be weird as a representative of the rest of the elves. What would make most sense to me, honestly? I mean, I could see Maedhros taking an interest because he would want to recruit them, right? I mean, of all of the elves, I would think that Maedhros would be quick to see the military value, right? I could, hearing that such a council was in the offing, I could imagine Maedhros wanting to go down and that would be a way to establish a relationship between Amlach and Maedhros as well. Maedhros could invite him after the council. So that's one possibility, having Maedhros involved. Finrod, of course, is the other most obvious. I mean, Finrod is our dominant elf protagonist of the whole season. And if the people of Beor are invited, I could see Finrod inviting himself, going along with the representative of the people of Beor. I know we're getting a lot of Finrod, and it's possible to get too much, even of Finrod Felagund, perhaps. But I'm just saying, as far as logical people to show up.
Plus, isn't he the High King? It seems like he would send an emissary instead of going himself.
No. Finrod, not Fingolfin.
Oh, Finrod.
Yeah,
Finrod.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I find myself misspeaking and misplacing things all the time when talking through this stuff. So right, and Rhiannon, you're absolutely right. Since the House of Hadar is mostly going to end up with Fingon and Fingolfin, there's reason for one of them to be there as well. So let's hold on that. We might, I'm kind of thinking, what if, the more I think about it, when I'm picturing like an elf standing up and speaking at the meeting, we could do that, especially if we wanted to give fuel to the Bereg fake Amlach party, right? I would think that at least some of the elves would basically respect the integrity of what they're trying to, they're trying to make up their own mind. Like, they didn't invite us to this council, right? They don't really want us there, but we've come because we're interested, right? And we want to talk to them. We want to work with them. We want to give them a pitch for remaining, but we don't want the we don't want to intrude. We don't want to come in and stomp all over the proceedings here as if we own the place. So anyway, I could imagine some like Fingon or even Maedhros, and probably Finrod. Caranthir, I could imagine busting in like he owns the place because he thinks he does, right? But I could see them kind of respecting it or just coming in as listeners and not saying anything. But I would think that it would be important to have a presence there. So I think we need to have this council be fairly definitive. I think it's only logical to hinge the whole question on this one point. That is, there are two destinations, right? There are two outcomes possible. Well, two in some combination, right? There are two proposals essentially being put before the people here at this council. One is to go join the elves, right? And the other is to leave. So you either take the Hodor route or you take the Bereg route, right? Those are the two options, I think, before the men. What I would not like, because it seems to me like a really muddy story, would be to have the council and have some of the people decide to leave, but others decide to stay, but not really do anything yet. We're going to stay and continue just like hanging out vaguely here until at some other point later in the future, for some other different kind of reason, we're going to then move to Dorloman, right? To me, let's do those together, right? Like, make a decision, people. Are you going to be all in on this, let's ally ourselves with the elves thing, in which case we're moving to Dorloman, right? Or we're moving somewhere, and maybe the follow-up question is, where do we move, right? You know, I'm not saying that has to be one single agenda item, but I think that's got to be the outcome of the council. Those who decide to stay decide to move to Dorloman. Those who decide against it decide to leave, right? So in the end, there's very few people left at the council. This is building up to why I would definitely argue Hodor needs to be there. I think that Hodor needs to be present at the council, because I think that this is going to be his moment to lead the people, those who decide to stay. So in the end, you've got the Bereg camp and you've got the Hodor camp, right? And he leads a big chunk of the people. I would say the majority of the people, at least 60-70% of the people up to Dorloman, and Bereg takes the other 30-40% of the people across the mountains. That seems to me the cleanest way to have the storyline of this group of people go, both in the sense that it gives them a clear identity. As soon as they, like, essentially the council is the question of what is the identity of this people going to be, right? And therefore that question, I think, really needs to be decided at that point. And if, as I would argue, Hodor should be the one who really defines I'm trying to go backwards here. There we go. If Hodor is going to be the one who really is the leader who is defining this, let's move to Dorloman and become allies of the elves movement, I really think he needs to be present there. So Stephen H. is asking, how do they get to Dorloman? I don't think we need to change the geography either, Stephen, but I don't think it's going to be that hard to get them to the north. They have to go north, right? So there are two routes that they can take, right? Not the Haleth route. Haleth went the only hard route to the west from where she was, right? She took the path of most resistance and went through, the Nandungortheb, right, through past the northern boundaries of Doriath and around that way. That's the only route that they certainly can't take. All they need to do, exactly, Marie, go up to Dorthonion, cross north of Dorthonion, and go across Ardgallen to up there, and Fingon can come in and guard and help them in that trek, so that they're not subject to surprise attacks from Angband during that trek, right? So the other route, of course, they could conceivably go down around the south of Doriath, but to me, it's kind of appealing to bring them up into the north, not only because that's where they're going to live, but even symbolically, the geography seems to match the symbolism, right? They march straight north into the teeth of Angmar, right? Or Angband, sorry. That's where the Angs are also one of the other things I often misplace verbally when I'm talking about it. Not just the Finns, but the Angs. Anyway, for them, like marching straight through to not within sight of Angband, but right up in Ardgallen, just so that they can be like, and on your right you will see Angband, the home of Morgoth, right? That seems to me very, very fitting. And I agree, Marie. It's not like it is still during the long peace, so it's not like Ardgallen is enormously. It's not like it's the gasping dust or anything like that. It would be perfectly pleasant to go. And in fact, Ardgallen is still where you go for picnics, as we saw in the last season, right? So, it's although there are very occasionally rampaging dragons, it's quite unusual, in fact. So that shouldn't present too much of a problem. And there is something kind of gutsy about parading their entire people past Angband, but that's what I like about it. It's gutsy on the part of Fingon, and it's gutsy on the part of Hodor as well, right? I mean, this helps to establish the identity of the people of Hodor as those people who were thumbing their noses at Morgoth from the beginning of their migration, right? It establishes their identity in the migration itself. And that's fun. That's cool. I like it. And I agree, Marie, that does seem to fit with the characters of both Fingon and Hodor. I think that it seems to be a thing that both of them would do, right? So that seems to me to work perfectly well. So, okay. So then if that's the case, if that's what's going to be the outcome of the council, and if therefore Hodor has to be present and has to have the stature in order to be able to be their leader, so that he says, "Follow me, everybody," and they do, then we have to establish him first. How do we do this? Now, I really liked the suggestions. Rhiannon, I think you were articulating this, I think, yeah. So I'm pretty sure, Rhiannon, it was your suggestion on the discussion boards that we preserve the idea of Hodor being one of the young men of his house who goes off to serve with the elf lords, right? So to introduce the solitary adventures, essentially, of Hodor as a strapping young human squire, right? Going and serving and getting to know Fingon up in the north there first. I really like that idea. First of all, because there's something that is, I don't necessarily want to lose entirely the idea of individual men going off and establishing, themselves in the house, in the households of the different houses of the elves. I argued against that in Beor's case and in the case of the people of Beor, because I want them to be a separate case study as a people, not just as an individual. But that doesn't mean that I'm against the idea of individuals going in general. And from this third people, those who shall soon be the people of Hodor, it makes most sense, right? These are the lingerers. They're the third people. Like the Teleri, they are the most numerous. Like the Teleri, they're the ones who linger behind the most, right? Haleth's people make up their mind sooner and they're out. Beor's people make up their mind and they're out, right? In their different ways and to their different locations. The rest of them hang there in Estelad for a while, not yet really deciding what to do. And so from that context, from that first stage of the life of this third house, right? Still kind of living on an Estelad, trying to figure out what they want to be as a people when they grow up. One of the first to have that stage be marked by several of the more intrepid among them, young men and young women, I would say, going out among the different houses of the elves. That I think is a really appealing story and is a good way to give Hodor the opportunity to have some opportunities for solo daring do, for him to build up a personal reputation. And, of course, to establish his relationship with Fingon and Dorloman. So if he's there already, if he spends a part of his teen years, right, in the house of Fingon, we have opportunities. I mean, goodness knows there's still plenty of opportunities for action up by Dor Lomin. It's the long peace, but still, there can be some border actions that he can take. There can be some fights with orcs in which he can distinguish himself. And I would think that the gifting of the dragon helm would happen during this time. Somebody remind me, I remember we had the forging of the dragon helm at the very end, didn't we? In episode 13 of season 4? Somebody remind me of the status of the dragon helm. Where is it? Where do we need to get it? We need to get it to Dor Lomin so it can be given to... Right, Telkar made it. That's all we had. So we didn't get it to Fingon yet, but we were going to have it given to Fingon after his defeat of Glorund, right? So we were paralleling the... Sorry, Glaurung. Glorund is his Book of Lost Tales name. This is what happens when you spend a lot of time working in the history of Middle-earth books, as I've been for the Mythgard Academy. You get all kinds of confused with names. Okay. Right. All right. So at the end of episode 13, it's awarded to Fingon in gratitude for and recognition of his defeat of Glaurung. Great. Okay. So, great. So if Fingon has it, then it's easy, right? That's just where it needs to be. We have Hodor taking up service with Fingon. We can have him going out maybe with like a small crew of people. I think maybe if he's not alone, it would be easiest. If Hodor goes out totally by himself, then none of the rest of the people in his house are even going to know what he does, right? So he's going to show back up, and he could show back up with a really swank helmet and an elvish posse, right? And still have the rest of his people be kind of uncertain about who he is and what's up with him, right? But if he goes out initially as a teenager, it's like, maybe Hodor has a group of friends, right? Kin and friends who decide we're going to go out and we're going to go meet the Eldar. We're going to go hang with the Eldar, right? We want to see what this is all about. We've heard that there's stirring work to be done up in the north. We are young and our blood is hot, and we want to go and we want to fight and we want to, play our part in the wars. So they make their way up to Dor Lomin together. Because if they're together, then this gives us not only the opportunity for him to return to the council with a following, but we could even send some of his following back in advance so that like the rumor of Hodor and the tales of Hodor and his deeds in the north could be circulated among the folks at Estelad prior to the council. Rian and the elves could invite them. Exactly. We have somebody show up. Who would show up? Who could we send down? Presumably not Fingon himself or Fingolfin himself. Who else besides Finrod? Well, Rogrim, excuse me. Except we haven't gotten him back yet, have we? No, we haven't gotten him back yet. We're not going to get him back for a bit. So we would need, do we have any other named elves up in Dor Lomin? And we had Rogrin, but we used him. We lost him temporarily. He's going to come back triumphantly, but we've briefly misplaced Rogrim. He's going to escape this season. Okay. If we wanted to get him out in time for this, we could always recycle him for that. Anyway, we send an emissary. However, we decide we want to manage that in the end. We send an emissary down into the south, so they recruit, right? I think both Maedhros and Fingon both would be interested in recruiting down in Estelad, right? So Hodor and a bunch of others come up, not a huge bunch. I'm thinking a dozen? A score? Like, a group, not 100, not 1,000, but, Hodor and, yeah. 20 good men, something like that. Well, 20 good humans. I would want I think there should be women among them as well. Marie points out that having Anael watch what happens with Amlach would be very interesting. Boy, wouldn't it though? That's true. That's tempting. We'll have to. We'll come back around to Anail's story, and when we do, we'll have to definitely remember that. But anyway, okay. So we got Hodor and like 20 folks who go up north with him. We can think of stuff for him to do up there. Again, there just has to be opportunities for him to distinguish himself in battle, act selflessly, save Fingon's life, that kind of thing. Fingon gives him the dragon helm. And his legend grows. He's like, obvious leadership skills. He's quickly accepted as the captain by the group of men who go up with Fingon. And they're all, so it doesn't take long before that group of people are all like, we would follow Hodor anywhere. And Fingon's like, this guy is the bomb and I'm giving him the dragon helm. And then some of the followers, some of the other humans, right, go back to Estelad and they're like, this Hodor kid, he's the guy. And so when Hodor returns, there's going to be the council. They come back and they're like, hey, Hodor, there's going to be a council. You should come back. And Hodor's like, I kind of like it up here, but okay. And then Hodor would then talk to Fingon and be like, hey, plan. Let's go back. I'm going to go back. We're having this council to decide what's going to happen here. I'm going to try to convince everybody to come back up here and join with you. What do you think? And Fingon's like, I think that sounds great. And so the two of them Fingon and Hodor can be sort of discussing the agreement, right? So that when Hodor is going back down, he's not just saying vaguely, hey, let's go north and see what happens, right? He's not saying, let's go beg at the doors of Fingon and Fingolfin, right? Instead, he's saying, I know Fingon, he gave me a shiny hat, and he said we have lands in the north that we can have. And not only can we have our own lands in the north, but they'll be where we can contribute, right? There's work to be done there. That we can play a part in safeguarding all of the realms of elves and men, right? And so he can make a stirring speech about how they can fulfill their destiny and do their part and how awesome it will be. So that, I think, to me, works really, really well for the backstory of Hodor. Obviously, I'm kind of waving my hands at the details here, right? Yeah. Now, Nick, that's a really good question. What or who triggers the council? Yeah, I don't know, actually. Like, whether Hodor triggers the council? Does he call it? Does he come back and say, okay, everybody, huddle up. I've got a proposal for you. And then Beric and Amlach kind of come out of the woodwork and are like, no, we're not into that. Or it could work the other way, right? Hodor could receive word from his lieutenant who went back home to Estelad to spread the news of his awesomeness. Not that that would have been the thing that Hodor sent him to do, but you understand what I mean. Anyway, that's what he was doing anyhow. So he comes rushing back and he's like, Hodor, like, the people are going to leave. There's this like Beric dude and these, Beric and Amlach are like spreading, all of this, faint-hearted, white feathered talk, right? And they're wanting to go back across the mountains, and Hodor is like, "Mais non!" right? And he goes down and gives his speech and like encourages them to stay. So I could see either side triggering it, or maybe even like, there's just the general sense of we need to make a decision, so let's call a council and we'll bring Hodor back and whatever. I kind of like the idea of the naysayers calling the council. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of the naysayers calling the council. And then Hodor returning. It gives Hodor's mission, right, to go down and invite people to come to the north and win them. It gives it a kind of an underdog sort of air to it, right? It makes his, and then, so he comes out of nowhere, basically out of nowhere. Again, they've heard of him, but it makes there's a little bit of sort of drama there. Yeah. Rhiannon thinks Beric and Amlach should start the council. Yeah. It does establish Amlach as anti-elf before he's doppelganged by Sauron. I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Agree. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So good. Yeah. So let's have Amlach and Beric call it. And so then we have somebody like hot footing it up to the north. It's going to take them a while to get it together because they're not real unified, right? They live all over the place. So, they've called, the big meeting. What's that wonderful Icelandic word that they use for like the meeting when everybody comes together and like makes a huge momentous decision, like the big decision they did in like medieval Iceland to like decide to convert to Christianity as an island. That like there's a really cool Icelandic word for this. The Althing. That's it. The Althing, Margaret. That's exactly it. They call an Althing, and for like 2 months down the road or something like that. It wouldn't be because it would take a while. It wouldn't be because, Stephen H. Exactly. It wouldn't be about authority. I don't think it would be that Amlach would have the authority necessarily to call the council. I think that it would just be that is Beric and Amlach would have to be kind of going around, like homestead, steading by steading essentially, and saying, hey, do you think it's lame here in Beleriand too? Because we totally do. We're trying to get everybody together and say, let's like leave here. How does that sound to you? So Stephen H., you were asking a very sensible question about like the leadership pre-Hador, right? Like in this first stage, right? Between, Beor is gone, Haleth is gone, Hador is, in diapers. Who's leading this group of people? And my answer is nobody. I don't think they have a central leadership at all. I think that this is the most amorphous group of people. I mean, they are amorphous in the text. I think it's the most amorphous group of people. I think there's a bunch of like more significant families, right? There are some more powerful families who have influence because they have like the most land and their neighbors respect them and everything. So Amlach and Beric are important in that way. They have like a local reputation because they're the heads of like major, significant families within the people, right? And so, they would be just kind of politicking. But the people as a whole, they wouldn't have a central leader. They wouldn't have a king. And so that would be another sort of a major identity change, right? That when they decide to take Hador as their lord, because this is the other thing, like that the House of Hador is going to become the most, like the line of Hador is the most king-like of all of the three houses of the Edain, right? The Haladim, they're not into, they follow Haleth because who wouldn't follow Haleth, right? She'll break your shins if you don't follow her. But they're not into like authoritarian leadership, right? The people of Beor aren't really going to be about a king either necessarily. In fact, one of the things that I would really like is to sort of show some different kind of governing structures in those two groups of people. But from Hador forward, there's a king of this third group. They have a leader who is a military leader, and who has real authority, right? But I don't think they have a king before that. They're just like, again, they never did. They wandered together as a people because staying close to the rest of the people was the safest place to be. And there were a couple families that decided they were going over them, some of the most important, the most powerful, the biggest families who decided they were going over the mountains. And so the others decided to go along with them because it was safest to stay together. And so that's how they ended up over here. They didn't necessarily follow like a single charismatic leader into this place. Hador will be their first charismatic leader. But Beric and Amlach are trying it out, right? And their authority will be of a different kind from Hador. Their authority is more of the, we're one of you, right? We are like, you are farmers and homesteaders around here. We are farmers and homesteaders, right? We are just successful and influential and rich examples of that kind of thing, of what you are. Hodor comes in and says, hi, look, I am different now. I am like a knight in elvish armor with a shiny hat. And I am going to lead us in a totally different direction, into a totally different destiny, and people dig it, right? And they decide to change their ways and to follow them. So yeah, exactly. Consolidated centralized authority is Hodor's new development, and it will be, Marie, as you say, made easier because Bereg's naysayers have all skipped, they all leave, right? So it's not like he wins over 100% of them by any stretch, but those he doesn't win over leave, right? So that he leads a unified people into the north. Stephen covers at wondering who's proposing an autonomous collective. Well, that Holith, Holith, the people of Holith, I think, are, they might not quite be an anarcho-syndicalist commune, but I think they're the closest to it of the human peoples. But perhaps it could well be that Amlach and Bereg are acting as an executive officer of the month when they decide to call the council, Stephen. So that's also a very viable possibility, I suppose. What are you guys thinking about this Hodor story? Does this seem to hold together? Is this sounding reasonable?
Yeah, it is, I think.
Okay, good.
I like him being kind of the pro elf angle. I also like.
Yeah.
I like his is his return from the mission going to happen at like a critical point in the middle of the conference?
Well, it would be especially dramatic if he wasn't there at the very beginning, wouldn't it? Yeah. Right.
He shows up at the ideal time.
Yeah,
of the debate.
That could easily get cheesy if we don't handle it right. But having a little bit of drama of because he would be on a mission to help save the continent at that point. I mean, because this is the biggest group of people, if they all just wander off, it's going to greatly affect the future of Beleriand here. So, it is a bit of a rescue mission there. Yeah, Nick says that wouldn't appear convenient at all. Yeah, I know. Like I said, we certainly wouldn't want to get too sort of cheesy, in the last second thing. But anyway, yeah, I think we can do something there. Okay. So, Stephen, I agree. We don't want... All right, somebody remind me of my time frame. At the end... Well, okay, hang on. We haven't decided when the council is. Let's talk about that. I'm thinking the council can happen sometime after the migration. So we can, that initial period in which this group of people is amorphously remaining in Estelon, while some of their young people are going off and living it up with the Eldar, that period of time, the pre-Hodor, post, Haleth's departure, post Beor's departure, Haleth and Beor both take off, Beor and his people all take off fairly early on in the game, right? But there can be a gap. I think even a generational, like a gap of a generation or more, where they're just milling around still in Estelad, and have them come to the decision point later on, so that Hodor doesn't have to be. I think to have Hodor in this role, I don't think it has to be right away. Now the downside. The downside is that the downside of it being a long time is that it seems to me a little bit weird. Like the longer they've stayed in Estelad, the harder the argument Bereg would have, I would think, to leave, right? I mean, wouldn't the primary options seem to be, if everyone at the council was born in Estelad and grew up in Estelad, wouldn't the primary choice be, do we move to the elves and help them, or do we stay here in Estelad where we all grew up? The idea of picking up and leaving and moving back across the mountains begins to sound like a weird thing to do. Like, why would they even want to do that? Why would that even seem to them like a good idea? What would be their motivation to say that? I mean, Bereg can be a sort of anti-elf extremist, so that he can make an argument just to say, like, no way, man, we want a mountain range between us and the Eldar, believe you me, right? So that's reason to pick up and just go from Estelad. But so yeah, the longer that, do you see what I mean? The longer the gap, the more that inertia would say they should just remain. So I don't know. We could still do that, I think. And we could, as Marie suggested, we could have a problem emerge in Estelad such that they're kind of something or other forces them to move. Like, staying isn't really an option for one reason or another. I don't know what. Flood, fire, pestilence, something. I don't know. Dwarves? Something with the dwarves? I'm trying to think of ways to bring dwarf plots in. I don't know. But if something were making remaining in Estelad a non-option so that it was really before them, we've got to go somewhere. Where do we go? Do we go west or do we go east? That simplifies the council situation. Yeah, so I can't think, Murray, what that could be exactly, but yeah. Stephen H. points out the hostility with the Green Elves. Yeah, now thank you, Stephen. You'll remember that I was saying I didn't want the hostility of the Green Elves to play a large role in Haleth's story, because I didn't want to make her just like an anti-elf bigot, based on her encounters with the Green Elves. I wanted her just to be kind of independent, purely sort of independent from the start. But I said I didn't want to lose the unfriendship, certainly, of the Green Elves. So it would be with the people of Estelad that the Green Elves would have unfriendship, right? So now Nick says that was a long time ago and it wouldn't influence this because they've already moved past the power of the Green Elves. Unless they haven't, right? What if they are expanding? So if more than one generation of men has already lived there in Estelad, they're going to be growing at a rapid pace. So they're expanding. So all we have to do is shift things a little bit for them to be back in the Green Elves' way again. Exactly, Marie. We just need some of them to go down into Is there a reason that Estelad can't be closer to Osirian in the first place? I know one potential answer to that is Carinthir. We want it to be near Carinthir, but Carinthir's only role, really, in this is with Haleth, right? And Carinthir is mobile. I mean, he's a hunter. He wanders all over the place. There's no reason he couldn't be a little further from home when he encounters Haleth and has that exchange. Hang on a second. Let me I'm pulling up a map of Beleriand, following Marie's very sensible suggestion here. Okay. Here we are. Map of Beleriand. So, we've got Osirian over here, right? Thargelion, which is in here. So Carinthir is up here by Lake Helivorn, and Estelad is down over here, south of Nan Elmoth. So they've migrated out, leaving Osirian and stuff behind, and so they end up in this open land here between Thargelion and Osirian on the one hand, and Doriath on the other side, and then here's Himlad and Maedhros up here in the north, right? And so Estelad is down there in the south. I would argue, I don't think we're absolutely wedded to that. I think we could budge the location of Estelad a little bit if we needed to. If we wanted to make it a little bit more afield. Now, Marie, you're right. We don't have to have Haleth be in Estelad. So if Carinthir needs primarily to interact with Haleth and the Haladin, then they can be, I mean, we could have, Haldar and his people be, Haldan and Haldar and Haleth, have all of them, right, be kind of separatist from the beginning, right? So they've established their own place up closer to Carinthir. Yeah, I'm not changing the geography, Stephen. I'm just changing where these people are. I'm not moving the River Gelion. I'm not moving Osirian. I'm not talking about that. My question is just, where do we want to locate these people? If we're going to leave them, if we're going to put them down in a place for a while, where is it most convenient for us to place them within the geography? That's my question. If they were more in Thargelion, this provides us a couple of opportunities. So if we put these people, if we relocate Estelad, essentially, here into the Thargelion, this gives several options to us, story-wise, right? It gives us the options of having them be nearer to the Green Elves, and so we can have some ongoing unfriendship there, right, as they expand and as they wander out and go on logging expeditions or whatever, right? That's one advantage that we get from that. Also, we can have them interact with dwarves, should we want to do that. We've talked about wanting to maintain some dwarf storylines season by season. We haven't yet decided what dwarf storylines we might be able to squeeze into season 5. But if we did want to do that, having a collection of humans nice and handy to have that, those storylines involve humans and dwarves seems like not necessarily a bad thing. We could put them more southerly, down by Amon Areb. Yes. Yeah. And Nick, I'm not even trying to imply what the dwarf storyline would be. I'm just saying, if they're closer to the mountains there, especially again near the dwarf road that leads down to the Sarnathrad, again, if they were in this southern part of the Thargelion, they'd be very likely to meet dwarves. So we don't have to do it, but if we wanted them to, there they are, right? Though, Marie, your suggestion of them being further south near Amon Areb raises the very attractive proposition of holding the council meeting on Amon Areb, which would be kind of fun. Yeah. Anyway, I don't insist on the relocation. I'm just thinking about, all I'm saying is, if we want to make Estelad too hot for these people so that they have to leave, I don't think we should let the geographical, like where the name Estelad was written on this map, be an obstacle to that storyline if we want to do that. of all of the realms in Beleriand, the exact location of Estelad seems to me one of the least significant. That is, we will change less in the whole rest of the world in the story by shifting Estelad than we would certainly by shifting any of the others. Yeah. So, oh man, Marie says they could be cutting down trees in Nan Elmoth to get and getting Eol's attention. What Eol would do to the men of Estelad would be interesting to think about. Sure, certainly. I don't know. It kind of seems to me a little extreme to say that they have to leave. Like, you know, to really make Estelad, to make a move imperative. And I kind of like the idea. I don't know. But apart from that, apart from my concern about the generational inertia that's likely to happen if they remain there too long, people in general support of my suggestion that the council should be comparatively late in the human game here. I do agree, Marie, that are two essential plot parameters, right? It has to be after the stockade battle, right? After Haleth and the Haladin leave, and it has to be before the people of Beor move up to Dorthonion, up to Ladros, up here, right? There's Ladros north in Dorthonion. So in that range is when the move up to Hithlum has to happen. But I think it could be, I would put it definitely closer to, it should be before the people of Beor move out. Yeah. So, yep. Yeah, mid-season-ish, Marie. I would say that it's before, if our break in the middle of the season happens. So let me see. Rough chronology. Beor visits Nargothrond. Beor brings his people to Nargothrond. Haleth, the Haladin have the Battle of the Stockade and they leave, right? And we've got the journey of the people of Haleth ending up in Taglin. Sorry, another one of those words that I've always mispronounced since I was a child, and have a hard time saying correctly. Sorry. And then Hador goes up to the north and has adventures in the north, and then the council is held, and Hador leads the people one way, and Bereg leads people the other way, and Amlak does his thing, and then the people of Beor move up to Ladros. That seems to me, that gets everybody where we want them to be for the latter part of the season, which is the build up to the Dagor Bragalach, right? No, I definitely would want the council to be after Haleth's story. Mostly Rhiannon, because Haleth's people are more decisive than that. Like they're like the people of Beor and the people of Haleth make up their minds soon. The ultimate decision of the House of Hador comes afterwards, after we've established the two paradigms and also shown some of the problems. We show some of the problems with the people of Haleth, right? Some of the problems with the fact that they're being so fiercely independent. I mean, the whole trek across Nandun Gortheb is itself sufficiently problematic to show that perhaps her particular brand of stubbornness is not wholly without its downside, right? The House of Beor, we've talked about problems developing in the House of Beor, such that they decide to move because it's in their best interest to move. The failure of the new Valinor project, right? So I want those paradigms to both be established first, then we have this next and, as it were, final decision to be made by the people at the council, the last house at the council. Yes. Okay. Good. Yeah. Now, Marie, you're right. Interactions with Eol would certainly give people reasons to distrust elves. Yes, it would. As would the green elves. I mean, they certainly are the ones. It is certainly this group of people that I would like to have experiencing the unfriendship of the green elves. And that can be one of the things that leads to, I mean, Bereg, that can be one of Bereg's tipping points. Like why Bereg says, look, we're out of here, right? These elves, they're hunting us for sport. Right? Now, that's not really what's happening for Osirian, but Bereg could be forgiven for thinking that, right? Bereg's experience of the unfriendship of the green elves would be, there are these crazy elves living out in the forest over there who hunt us for sport, right? We're not safe here. And then there's Caranthir, and then there's that Eol dude, right? And then there's, Captain Unfriendly who lives in Doriath right across the way. We are surrounded by lots of reasons to be discontent here, right? Yeah, we've carved out our own little space here, but it's only a matter of time until we're either exterminated or subjugated or whatever sketchy things these elves have in mind, right? So yeah, the more I think about this, the more it just sort of seems like, look, this is a bad neighborhood. Right. This is we don't want to live here. Like, we need to look at the big picture. And this is even if we discount the orc invasions, right? We add on top of this the fact that we get the periodic orc invasion breaking through. And this is no paradise. Yes, we've eked out a place here, but you know what? It's safer on the other side of the mountains. No orcs, no elves. Everything's fine. Right. Hey, Nick. Sorry, Nick, I keep addressing this to you because I know that you are a major dwarf advocate. So what if there's a dwarvish connection with Bereg and his people? What if some of the dwarves, like maybe some of the dwarves of Nogrod, are actually trying to recruit the humans as their allies and are offering them like passage through the mountains or something like that? I don't know. But yeah, oh, Stephen, absolutely. Into the midst of this, Sauron. So Sauron's big play, right? I mean, the fake Amlach thing, his decision to doppelgang Amlach is just like the crown jewel of his campaign, right? Sauron has a new project in season 5, and his project is this group of people because he can see that if he can build enmity, there's all kinds of good things that can come for Morgoth's crew from this, right? Ideally, he can start a war and have these humans get together and start attacking the elves around them. That's like, the gold star for Sauron's campaign. At the very least, let's permanently alienate them so that they go back and leave Beleriand and don't benefit the elves at all, right? That's plan B. That's still a win. It's not the like supreme win that starting a war would be, but still it's pretty good. And then, and then of course, defeat is what happens when Hador comes in. Then Hador comes in and ultimately undoes Sauron's plot by taking the vast majority of the people up into arming them and using them as like, that's exactly what Sauron didn't want. So that would be bad. But again, Bereg would be a success. So I don't know. Matt Duke asks, are there no orcs on the other side of the mountains? Well, we don't know, but there's got to be fewer, right? I mean, the forces that Morgoth has at his disposal here are going to be mostly focused on crushing the Noldor. He's got time to expand over the mountains and take out Eriador and Rovanion and all the rest of it, right? Later on. I would think he'd be focusing the majority of his orcs here. So yeah, I would think that things over in Eriador would in fact be comparatively peaceful, in fact. See, Marie, I was also thinking that the dwarves don't much like the green elves. And so, that's exactly what suggested to me the possibility of that plus the crossing back over the mountains, and that's where the dwarves live, Anyway. Yeah. So Sauron definitely making trouble there. And so this is what leads them ultimately to the crisis of the council. So maybe that's one of the things that's on the table, right? In fact, I bet you that if Bereg and Amlach were to try to set the agenda for the council, what they would say is, we have two choices, right? Choice number one, leave Beleriand and never return, right? Get ourselves clear of this bad neighborhood and this ugly situation. Option two, fight, right? Claim this place for ourselves and fight back against these, purge Nan Elmoth of that dark elf character. Go and, carve out and burn down the forests of those green elves down there in Osirian. It's like those would be his two options. Do we fight or do we leave? And those would be, of course, Sauron's two goals, right? And then Hodor comes in and is like, option C, right? We stay and we fight and we join with the elves. And that makes it more, again, and I don't know that we need to exploit the drama of him showing up at the last second or 2 days late or something like that. His own position would be sufficiently radical, and for him to win, for him to move the people to his comparatively extreme position would be a cooler triumph and of a sudden upset for Sauron's plans there in Beleriand. And of course, a good reason for Morgoth to begin a pretty hard grudge against the House of Hodor from the start, right? Okay, so I am not 100% convinced that Hodor has to have died of old age by the time we get to the Dagor Bragollach, actually. I think that Hodor could still be old and die, and fighting and die in the battle.
You basically, are you trying to merge Hodors?
Sorta. Yeah, well, because I'm wanting to compress the time frame a little bit. So I think we can kind of, I think we might be able to kind of have our cake and eat it too, as far as Hodor is concerned. Because if he goes to Hithlum as a teenager, right? He's like 14 or something when he goes and first enters into Fingon's service. And he's there for like maybe 10 years, right? I think that Hodor could totally be a really impressive like 25-year-old at the council, right? And then he leads the people into the north, and then he could be still. No, yeah, I guess he would be too old, Marie. You're right. It'd be close though, right? Because Andreth is going to be young, and she's going to still be alive at the Dagor Bragollach, but she's going to be old. But I guess if we were talking about the possibility of her being 80 or 100, having 100-year-old Hodor wouldn't be quite so appealing. But that's okay. That's okay. And yes, you're right, Nick. She doesn't need to be bearing arms and armor in the battle. But okay, that's fine. And hey, yeah, upside, it gives Galdor something to do. It gives Galdor a reason to exist. So that's fun. Yeah, why not? Why not? Galdor, of course, is one of those characters from the text who is mentioned almost exclusively in genealogical contexts, right? That is, he doesn't do anything in the story other than beget Hurin, right? So, yeah, exactly, Nick. That's exactly the well, but yeah, we'd actually have him do something anyway. So, I am open to that. I'm open to that. Yeah. Okay. So we can give Galdor a little bit of a story, maybe. We can get to him a bit. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Okay. So that's good for... I think we're good on Hador. With Amlach, we've decided a lot of the council questions. There's not too much left to talk about with Amlach, actually. A little bit. Maybe we won't quite finish Amlach, but we'll come close. So Amlach is with Bereg. I think that Amlach... Hey, if we have the two options, the let's be expansionist and establish our hold on this land by force and teach these unneighborly elves what's what, and let's leave. What if Amlach is the aggressor? What if he's the feisty one to start with? So Amlach, and this gives a distinction between Amlach and Bereg's approaches to the council. Bereg is the let's get out of here camp, and Amlach is the let's fight them camp. And then Hador comes in and says, no. That way, they're not just, Tweedledum and Tweedledee as we approach the council. Amlach and Bereg, I mean. And then Amlach's conversion is sort of more dramatic, right? Yeah. 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 I like it. That fits in kind of nicely because it maintains his character, right? His position change. He has a real change of heart, especially since what gives him the insight is the fake Amlach situation, right? And so what is exposed to him specifically, he doesn't have a conversion about trusting the elves exactly, right? I mean, it's not like he emerges from the council being like, I now love elves. I hated them before, but now I think they're awesome. That's not what happens to Amlach. What happens to Amlach is, okay, there is an enemy in the north, and he's definitely against us, and he's playing us. I know he's playing us because he's clearly playing me. And so it shows, it like reveals to him he begins to see the truth of the whole thing. So yeah, Rhiannon, what I'm suggesting is that Amlach himself is leaning towards the aggression against elves camp. This is why when fake Amlach appears in the council, this is why Sauron chooses him. Because Sauron chooses Amlach because he's the one who's like, it's not going to seem strange if Sauron shows up in Amlach's form and gives because Sauron's plan A is to foment war in the eastern half of Beleriand, right? If he can do that, that's absolutely his optimum outcome. So he tries to do that. So Amlach is his chosen tool for this, right? But he decides that he wants to show up as Amlach himself. No one's going to think anything because they've heard Amlach talking in this way, but he wants to control the room, right? He wants to use his own powers of persuasion. He doesn't trust Amlach to do the job in the end, right? So he's going to come and take over and do the thing, right? But it backfires on him because Amlach ends up showing up which he wasn't supposed to do. He was supposed to take him out. Sauron would have decided to like off Amlach or something, right? So that he so that he can then show up and then he can lead the like get the people to war and then he can take off, right? Maybe he even plans to lead them into war, right? And then just like, you know, take off in the form of a bat at an inopportune moment, leaving them on the field to be slaughtered or something, you know. Anyway, probably something like that would be Sauron's plan. So fake Amlach comes and makes his speech and everyone's like, wow, Amlach's really feeling it today, right? I mean, like we've heard him talk like this before, but wow, he's really pulling everything together today, right? Now we see this is really the thing. So yes, Marie, this would mean that Amlach would still be feisty and interested in fighting, but now he has a grudge against Morgoth, so he turns it around and decides to fight against him, and so therefore joins with the elves. But he's still not an elf lover in general. But he gets Maedhros. He and Maedhros are kind of kindred spirits in that they're both all about fighting. So both of them are willing to ally with each other because they're both on the same page when it comes to taking vengeance against Morgoth, right? So, exactly, Lincoln. Amlach's enemy is Amlach. Yes. Well, yes. Okay. He takes as his ally Morgoth's enemy, right? Morgoth's most bitter enemy. So I know there was a movement on the discussion board to have Amlach actually captured by Sauron, maybe captured and tortured so that he can be kept out of the way. I do like the idea of... So my only resistance to this idea is that I don't want to go too far over the top in ratcheting up the drama, you know, and having like a hostage crisis at the same time that the council is happening. I think we'd have to be careful. It could go a step too far, but I kind of like it. In that it makes sense for Sauron's plan. If Sauron is all about fomenting troubles down here, Amlach would have been his tool already. Amlach will have been manipulated by Sauron. I think that Sauron should already be taking human form and living among them. And he could be like Amlach's friend and supporter, right? So he's like Amlach's Wormtongue, basically, right? And then he takes Amlach's place for the big day. But he would want to get Amlach out of the way. So having Amlach hauled off and captured somewhere. My only question is, why didn't he just kill him? What reason would Sauron have for capturing Amlach instead of just cutting his throat?
Need some information from him?
Well, if he already knows him, he'd be able to counterfeit him reasonably well.
Yeah.
I don't know that he would need him for anything. What if we combine the two stories? So the story in the text is that Amlach is just out of town, right? He's just away. And we're not told exactly why he doesn't make it in time. He just shows up late. And when he shows up, he finds that someone else has impersonated him and he's like, what the heck, right? In our story, we have him being captured and held away from the council. What if we combine the two? He's away. We need to find a reason for him to be away. He can't just be randomly wandering about. But he leaves and Sauron doesn't know where he's gone. So Sauron's like, oh, great. Just when I was about to cut his throat and now he's gone. So I guess what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to leave somebody to... I'm going to have to leave somebody to, capture him, like wait for him in ambush to make sure he doesn't show up. right? Because, now I don't even know where he is. I've lost track of Amlach, and I need to impersonate him. And if he shows up, it's going to be no end of awkward. So I'm going to take some of my minions, probably Thuringwethil, because I think we already killed Tevildo. I saw suggestions that it be Tevildo, and though I kind of like the idea, I think Tevildo needs to be gone already, unless we're going to stretch Haleth's story out super far. But I think Haleth is done by now, so I think we're done with Tevildo. But anyway, so he probably sends Thuringwethil and, like a squad of ninja bat assassins to ambush him or something, so that we could even have him not be captured, but have him be ambushed, but saved from ambush. If we want to have him rescued and have the possibility of having Maedhros rescue him, we could have him, like, them trying to ambush him and kill him and have him rescued there. So that way we don't have Sauron making the inexplicable decision to keep him alive for no reason. Well, Nick, the only reason I can think of that Thuringwethil isn't killing him is that I would think Sauron would have told her to kill him. I mean, I would think that would be her orders. Amlach, I don't know where Amlach is, but I need him not to come back. So please, don't let him return. Nick is asking, why does he leave before this council he's called? I don't know, Nick. That's what I'm trying to think of. First of all, he doesn't have to be absent. That is, he has to be absent, but he doesn't have to be deciding to go on a trip that will make him miss the council. He thinks he's going to be back for the council, except he gets ambushed along the way, right? And so maybe he's like injured or something. And so he's rescued by Maedhros, or Rhiannon suggests Amras or somebody, right? Rescues him, but he's hurt, right? So he still can't make it back. And, and if it's Amras, like, he wouldn't even maybe know that the thing's happening, right? Anyway, yeah. So he, they're like tending him, and then like he wakes up and, he's like, how long have I been here? And they're like, oh, it's okay. You're fine. We've been treating your wounds. Like, you've been unconscious for a couple of days, but it's no big deal. And he's like, what? I missed the council. I missed the all thing. I got to go back. And so he rushes back and finds out that he, unbeknownst to himself, was actually there. And Stephen says he could be rescued by passing dwarves. There we go, a dwarf plot. Oh, a heroic dwarf plot, not a dwarf's disgruntled dwarf still bearing a grudge against the green elves plot. So we have another alternative there. Okay, Nick is suggesting Caranthir could kidnap him because of his anti-elf rhetoric, and then Thuringwethil steals him from Caranthir, and Maedhros finds out and rescues him from Thuringwethil. Well, Nick, that would be just in case the storyline is insufficiently complex, and we want to add some twists in our storyline. We always have that option. It could work. It could work. Yeah, anyway, we can work that. We can, as we get closer into that and we're doing our episode by episode, we can make but the logistics of that seem to me sound. And it seems to me like by having him be the warmongering human leader, that seems to, a more consistent character in Amlach seems to be emerging, right? Spunky, not particularly wise, fairly hot-headed, strong, militaristic, and he, I think, the turning point of the council, he would come back while the council was still happening, right? So he comes in late to the council, but he comes in, and after fake Amlach has already left, and then he throws his support behind Hador. Because he's militaristic, right? He's like, yes, we should fight, but we should not fight the elves. We should fight Morgoth, but he doesn't want to go. You know, he's like, Hodor's not his style, right? And, or maybe even he's wise. Maybe Amlach says, you know what? I've got, you know, I'm a militaristic dude. You're a militaristic dude. I've got my supporters. You've got your supporters. This is never going to work. I'm going to abdicate to you and I'm going to go off by myself to Maedhros, or maybe just like his household or something like that. But Amlach throwing his support, this character of Amlach that we're developing would, I mean, if he decided to stay and if he decided, no way, man, I'm focusing all of my pent up aggression against Morgoth instead of the elves, he would throw in with Hodor, and that would shift. And now it's just Bereg on his own with his separatists, right? So we end up just having the split decision. Yeah, good. Nick says he could parallel Anail's move and feel like he can't be trusted. So like he abdicates because he feels like he's an unfit leader because he was manipulated by Sauron. And so he decides to go off and, you know, join Maedhros's, you know, PTSD support group up in Hithlum and, you know, work things out there privately while still joining the fight against Morgoth from there. I have to say, I really like the idea of Amlach kind of going into retreat with Maedhros. Not retreating as in battle, but is like going by himself rather than leading a group of people. Because my biggest problem is if a large group of people follow Amlach, even if it's only like 10%, you know, if hundreds of people follow Amlach to Hithlum, or not Hithlum, I'm losing my words. Where did I put the map? There I put the map. Himlad, thank you. Good grief. Himring. That area up there with the H. If hundreds of people go up to Himring with Amlach, then they need a future. What happens to them? I mean, we're not going to, unless we want to develop storylines of the people of Amlach, who, you know, that group of humans who's over there hanging out with Maedhros, you know, if we don't want that, we shouldn't have a group move up with them, right? And I don't think we want that because we want Maedhros ready for the Easterlings, right, to come over. He needs to be primed for Bor and Ulfast. And if he's already got a bunch of people with him, I think it's going to complicate Bor and Ulfast when they come over. So, yep. That's it. So, but if he goes by himself, it's different. Then it's an abdication. It's a retirement from public life. And he goes up to Himring on his own, because he knows a kindred spirit when he sees him, and they're both scarred and, you know, again, support group. So that's good. All right. Hey, I think we did it. Did we do it? I think we did it.
Amazingly.
I think we did it. Now we didn't talk about Adonel, but that's okay. We'll save Adonel. And we talked about Adonel last time, some too. I think that Adonel is, I would like for the people of Beor, who are at least to start with a very peace-loving people, right? They're domesticated, right? Like literally the domesticated pets almost, right? Of the elves of Nargothrond. So they're not going to be a militaristic people. They're going to have the most pacific leadership structure of all the three groups, right? If the people of Haleth are ruled by the one strong leader, right, in Haleth, who perhaps does not pass down an obvious rulership to her heir, right? Maybe they choose an heir of the Haladin, not patrilinearly or even matrilinearly. But anyway, if she doesn't do that, but instead, you know, so they like take a chieftain from like the strongest one among them, like Haleth was originally or something. But anyway, it should be more like a kind of a tribal chieftain kind of situation with the Haladin. And Hador, post-Hador, they're going to be, an anarcho-syndicalist commune in phase 1 of their lives, and then they're going to be a monarchy under Hador afterwards. The people of Beor I see as like ruled by a council of the wise, essentially. Not like an oligarchy, really, but the unofficial leader, like the leader in as much as they need leaders, because they've got Finrod, who's their leader, right? But in as much as they have leaders, they are led primarily by like the wise ones among them. And so Adonel and Endreth would be I would really want them to be the leaders. I'm not saying that we get rid of entirely of Boromir and we need Barahir and we need Beren and stuff. I'm not saying we get rid of any of them, but I am saying that I think at the end of their time in Nargothrond and at the time of the change, the shift up to Dorthonion, they should be ruled by the fact that they are ruled by a wise person who is B, a woman, is something I think would be really cool about the people of Beor there. Now, Stephen H. brings up the very sensible point that they're going to end up in Dorthonion, like on the front lines of the battle, which seems a strange place for the people, for the really Pacific people to go. And my response to that is that's exactly why they do it, right? Remember, we had talked about Adonel and Andreth leading the people to make that choice and say, we need to leave here. We have a different calling. We need to play this very different role. And so they don't choose the front lines by accident, right? They choose to move up to Dorthonion. It's still, near Nargothrond, not geographically, but linearly. I mean, it's Finrod's brothers, right, that they're going to go up and live near. So Finrod is like, okay, I can set you up in the north, right? You want an active role. You've decided that your people really should change how they are, not just be ours. And Nick, we don't have time to talk about it today, but remind me to come back to it. I really liked your idea. And Nick, I'm saying this with alarming regularity these days. I don't know which one of us has changed, whether it's you or me, but I'm agreeing with you like all the time now. It's kind of eerie, but I really liked your suggestion about the way that the culture of the people of Beor changes. I think that's really cool. We don't have much time to talk about it now because we got to go. We'll come back to it though next time. But anyway, so yeah, Adonel and Andreth are leading the people. They're the ones, I think, who make the call to go up there. Once they're up there in the north, they're going to become rangery type, right? They're going to become the woodsy frontier people. We talked about this before. And they're going to have, in that context, they're going to need now a military leader, who's going to be the captain of their band, right? And that's going to be Barahir, right? And Beren after him. So we will have that role for a more active leader of the people, but Andreth is still going to be, Barahir is still going to come back and consult with Andreth, right? She is still the wise woman who is most revered of all of their people by that time. Okay. Yeah. That's what I like. Now, and Steve and I agree, they're not going to be real useful immediately. But this is one of the things that even Finrod is going to come to understand. Humans change real quickly. It's not going to take them long. In a generation, they're going to be different. They're going to move to Dorthonion, and they're going to be initially sheltered and helped and protected by Angrod and Aignor, right? But not sheltered in the way, right? The new model, right? Finrod and Andreth will establish the new model for their people, where they are helping and ruling themselves and doing their own thing and moving out from beneath the skirts of the elves. And within a generation, from the time that we have at the end of the first half of the season to the second half of the season, by the time we get to the Dagor Bragalach, we've got, the, special forces of Barahir and Baron up there. So, yeah, the shift from young Andreth to old Andreth during that time, during her long lifetime, from Andreth as like 16-year-old, student, right, of Adonel, up through to Andreth, highly venerable, wise woman of her people, and benignantly jilted lover of Ignor. The people of Beor will have changed during that time. So anyway, that's a very quick glimpse back at Adonel and Andreth. Okay, cool. Thanks everybody for joining us. This was a really fun discussion, and we did all the things. Whoops. So, hang on. Look at that. All right. Look, I'm so excited. I'm losing my PowerPoint here. So next time, we're going to be on Thursday, July 2nd, is our next session. And we're going to be doing more about Andreth. There's a lot of her story to work out. We've talked about some basic parameters there, right? But there's much more to build on. And let's move up towards Barahir and think about the front half, the latter half, I should say, of the stories of men, and see if we can iron out the genealogies and stuff like that. So that's the plan for next time. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. For all of your suggestions. Like I said, you guys were awesome on the discussion. You're always awesome. Even when I don't agree with you, you're awesome. But it was awesome that I really loved your ideas this time. And I thought there was a lot of really wonderful stuff there. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye now. Wait.
This human stuff is turning out.
Sorry, no, Dave, go ahead.
I was just saying, this human stuff is turning out so fascinating.
Yeah, it is. These are really great stories. I agree. But I almost realized I forgot which broadcast I'm doing. I forgot to say, thanks for listening and Godspeed. Whew, that was close. Oh man, I almost forgot. Boy, I got to keep track of where I am. Oh man. Okay. Cool. But yeah, no, I agree. There's so much stuff here. It's really, there's so much opportunity for us to dig in. That's why I've been looking forward to the human stories for so long, because although they are so disappointingly brief, we only get humans for at most like chunks of one season, but still we can still do quite a bit with them, I think. Yeah.
They're kind of a nice, they're a nice foil to the elves who are around all the time.
Yes.
Until something bad happens to them.
Absolutely. And it's a really cool way to, it's another reason why I'm, as we're talking about this stuff, the more we talk about the human stories, the more happy I am with our choice of change as the theme of season 5, because it really is. I mean, think about the ways in season 4 when we were showing how like huge spans of time were passing, right? As like cities were rising and, whole like nations were being built, right? And now the elves, whom we were showing like in fast motion in the last season, now all of a sudden look like they're in slow motion, right? Like while generations of humans are going by, and a whole culture like the people of Beor will change from being quite similar to Hador's people at first, to being totally different in Nargothrond, to being totally different again in Dorthonion, right? Meanwhile, it's been like, it seems like a day has passed to the elves. Like they've been having one single conversation this whole time, right? Yep. So it'll be a really neat way to kind of contrast things. So yeah. Anyway, cool. All right. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Although the theoretical budget of our hypothetical blockbuster may be unlimited, the production budgets of this and the rest of our fun alternative educational projects are unfortunately not. If you have enjoyed joining our production team, please consider donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.